We are in the midst of the Sefirat Ha'Omer, the counting of the Omer, and there's a very interesting merge of two things that are going on. Right? We have the counting of the Omer, which is that ascent from Pesach, from the physical exodus from Egypt, from Yetziat Mitzrayim, to Shavuot, which where we reached the spiritual height of the exodus from Egypt by Mount Har Sinai, Mount Sinai, Kabbalah HaTorah, receiving the Torah. So this is a very exciting, eventful time of, it should be happiness. At the same time, we have elements of Avelut. We have elements, aspects of mourning that take place throughout Sphira. Right, and those who don't need to be shaving for work and stuff like that. So, so we're getting a little bit, a little bushy over here. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That was a dirty word for you. No context. You know what it means. So we have these aspects of mourning in terms of not having weddings, not shaving, trimming, grooming, haircuts, etc. The exception, of course, is since Lag BaOmer is on Sunday, so Friday is a time that one can do, right? But we have these aspects of mourning that runs concurrent to the Sphira, and then it gets suspended. Comes Lag BaOmer. According to most customs, it gets suspended from Lag BaOmer, and then that's it. No more until Shavuos, and of course, and after Shavuos also, we're home free until we get to the 3 weeks, which will be another lunch and learn in a way ahead. But you know, please God, that will be celebrating the Geula, the redemption, as opposed to the 3 weeks of mourning. But we have a little time for that. Others have the custom that they only start the Avelut, the mourning, with Rosh Chodesh, and that takes you then through Shavuos, with the exception, of course, of Lag BaOmer. Lag BaOmer, Lag is Lamed Gimel, is the 33rd day of the Omer. So today we're going to be working through a number of sources and getting a sense of what is this Lag BaOmer, why is there this concept of this aspect of mourning, why is it suspended on the 33rd day of the Omer, and how does this relate to us? What can we learn from this, and how can this impact our daily life? Okay, first of all, a thank you to Stu and Lynn for sponsoring the Lunch and Learn this week. Thank you very much, and may this serve Le'iloi Nishmat in the memory of your mother-in-law, right, and all others in the family. Okay. So we're going to start with the Gemara in Yevamot. Tractate, right, source number 1, Talmud Bavli. Rabbi Akiva said, Lamad Torah b'yalduto, Yilmod Torah, Lamad Torah b'yalduto, Yilmod Torah b'ziknuto. He said if a person learned Torah, thank you so much, if a person learned Torah when he was young, he should nevertheless make sure that he learns Torah as he gets older. If he had students when he was young, don't think, all right, I had my students already, I developed my disciples. No, make sure you keep on working at it and develop students also when you are older. I think the Gemara also speaks about if you had children when you were young, right? Have children when you are older. Shenever says, Baboker, Zara et Zaracha. In the morning, you should plant your seeds, right? Ube'erev, in the evening, do not al tanach yadcha. I think it's along those lines. Amru, they said. Now, Rabbi Akiva is speaking from personal experience, tragic personal experience. When he instructed, if you had students when you're young, make sure to develop students when you get older also. Amru was stated, Shneim Asar Elef Zugim Talmidim. 12,000 pairs of students. We don't say 24,000 students. We see 12,000 pairs of students. From that we see the importance of
not counting individuals.
Of not counting individuals, good. And also a chavruta. What is a chavruta? A study partner. Right? Actually, Rabbi Yochanan, after the death of his student who became his chavrusa Reish Lakish, he coined the very famous phrase, "O chavruta, O mituta." Either a chavruta or death. Right? We heard liberty or death. Well, he said no, chavruta or death. That the importance of having a chavruta, a study partner. When you study by yourself, I know when I prepare the Daf Yomi, I prepare by myself, it all makes sense to me. I don't have any questions. It all makes perfect sense. Then I start teaching it in the morning, and I got 4 or 5 or 6 chavrutas sitting in front of me. I'm a rabbi, and that's when I really get it clear. And very often, if I'm trying to prepare the Gemara and it's late at night, and I'm not really getting it, I know I just need to get myself to the point that once I'm learning it the next morning with the chavrusas, with the gang, it'll go. Right? When you're learning with other people, you get a certain clarity. So Rekiva had 12,000 pairs of students, not 24,000 individual, 12,000 pairs of students. Migavat ad Antifras, right? From this place to that place. The Kulan Metu, Beperek Echad. And they all died within a certain time period. B'mnei shelo nagu kavod zeh lazeh. Because according to their level, they were not treating one another properly, respectfully. V'haya olam shamein. Now imagine Rabbi Akiva, he was a Rosh Yeshiva of 12,000 pairs of students. Now that's a yeshiva. And they all died. So, we would understand if Rabbi Akiva said, maybe I'll go into real estate. Right? Maybe computer programming or something like that. Wow, what devastation. What did he do? He came to the other sages that were in the south. Vishanalem, and he taught these 5 younger Rabbanim who became his students in his older age. Who were these students? Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua. And whenever we learn the Gemara now, whenever we learn the Mishnah now, who are we learning? We're learning from Rabbi Akiva, we're learning from Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda. These are the names that we know. Ha'emidu Torah oto sha'a. And they are the ones who re-established the Torah at that time. Tana was taught in the Braita. Kula Meitu, they all died during which time period? Mi Pesach v'ad Atzeret. From Pesach until Shavuot, the time that we are counting the Omer. They all died actually a very, very painful, a very, very difficult death.
We have documentation of this. 24,000 people died by choking during this period.
Well, asachra is a type of disease which led to...
Oh, okay.
Right? It wasn't that they were all eating something, right, and before Heimlich, right? It was a disease, right, that left a person choking probably for air, and that was it. The Gemara, well, actually, the Medrash in Bereshit Rabbah says, Amar Akiva Talmidav HaChadashim. Rabbi Akiva said to his new students, Banai, my sons, Harishonim lo meitu ela shaita eineim tsara elu le'elu. Your predecessors, my earlier students, only died because they did not. A tsar ayin, they define it as looking generously. A tsar ayin means it bothers me. What you have bothers me. I'm not going to have it either way, right? But if you understood a certain pshat, I'm talking in the context of the learning, because these are talmidim. If you reach a certain level in learning. Now we say kinas sofrim tar b'chachma. We say that the jealousy amongst scholars, that increases the wisdom. So I can see someone who has surpassed me, and I could use that to motivate me, myself, to work harder, to put in more hours, to be more diligent. That is fine. But I shouldn't I shouldn't be bothered by the accomplishments of others. So he said they had this tsar ayin to nu daitchem shelo ta'asu k'ma'asehem. Pay attention not to do like them, and understand that when you're talking about Talmidei Chachamim, their life is their thinking, is their understanding. So someone else has, for some people their life is their money. So if someone has more money than them, it eats them up. Right? But for Talmidei Chachamim, their life is their Torah study. But Torah study needs to be the search for emes, the search for truth. So if someone else has the truth and I got it wrong, fair enough.
Right.
I bow my head and I say thank you. I used to tell my chavrusas when I was in yeshiva that if we're arguing and I start to raise my voice, realize that you realize that I'm realizing that I'm off and you're right. And I'm putting up my last effort over there. So come in quickly for the kill, show me why I'm wrong, and that way we can go on. Right? But it's difficult to admit that the way that I saw it is wrong, the way that you saw it is correct. Right? But learning Torah must be the search for emet, the search for truth. Right? But these Talmidim, on their level, they failed in that respect. And they all died. They all died during this time period. So now we have a sense of the mourning, the Avelut, that accompanies these days of Sphira. Rabbi Aaron Kotler in source number 3 writes, to explain why Rabbi Akiva's students died for a seemingly trivial sin, perhaps we can say that Rabbi Akiva was the foundation of the redaction of the oral law. And his students are the ones who would pass on the oral law to future generations. Therefore, they had to embody the perfection of all the 48 traits through which Torah is acquired. For they would lack even one of these traits, they would be lacking in the essence of the acquisition of the Torah. They would be unable to transmit it in purity and holiness. Therefore, apart from the fact that God is strict with the righteous to within a hair's breadth, there was also this idea that since they were lacking the quality of being close with one's fellow students, which is one, we turn the page, of the 48 traits, their Torah would be fundamentally flawed. Therefore, they were not worthy of passing on the oral law to future generations. So last year, Shavuos, we had the all-night learning going through the 48 ways. Now, it's fascinating to note that this trait where they were lacking, right, which it was written as being close with one's fellow students, that is number 33. Okay? Lag BaOmer is the time that they recognized that or took upon themselves, and there was a cessation to a certain degree. Furthermore, their Torah learning was deficient because it was not completely pure, and the oral law had to be passed on as a complete Torah in every way. Therefore, they did not merit having the Torah passed on through them, but instead the rabbis from the south merited this. Since the life of the sages is Torah, as Rambam writes, they were lacking in the essence of their existence. And therefore, their lives were terminated at an early stage. Frightening. Yes?
So if Hashem tries to give, as we seen from Chazal, tries to give every chance to redeem and make tshuva, if someone is fundamentally lacking in a trait, isn't that part of how Hashem made that person? And wouldn't there be some chances to try and acquire that trait, to work on that?
I would agree. I would imagine that this is after. Well, I wouldn't necessarily agree that God made that person that way. There are certain flaws that we as individuals have, which perhaps we were predisposed to, right? A certain temperament I see with my children. they were born with different temperaments. Some were more easygoing, others are a little more riled up. There's a certain temperament that they're born with, right? There are also certain things that children take in from their environment, and there are also bad choices that we make, right, which lead us down a certain path and having certain ways. And yes, and a person does have the opportunities in life to correct those, and then at a certain point, it's the lifeguard blows the whistle and everyone out of the pool.
So
it.
Did Rabbi Akiva try to convey this idea to his students?
That's it. You're making a great point, Stu. And it would seem that
would be maybe one of the most important things.
It would seem that he did, but was unsuccessful. And it would seem that he did, because if he didn't, then he would also have been held responsible, right, for allowing this ship to really to careen, right, off target, right. So the very fact that we find that Rabbi Akiva is not held responsible, right, which would seem that he did what he could do. But they didn't take to it. And as Jan is saying, I would agree that they must have had chances and opportunities which they did not utilize.
That's a lot of people to go astray, Rabbi.
Yeah.
I'm having trouble with this one.
Yeah. No, it certainly is. Yes, Dov.
My question is, if the people, they come to Rabbi Akiva's class, and he has to tell them, you're going to be responsible from here on out for the Masorah, and you've got to be at such a level.
Yep. Okay, number 4. Yes,
Isn't
Linda.
this also just somebody deciding what happened? I mean, nobody can really speak for Hashem. We're not positive that's why.
Right, yeah, okay. I said it's like the concept that Chazal tell us.
Yes. You are right. I agree and I disagree. Okay? There was no Navi, right? There was no Navi, right? When there is no Nevuah, there are the Chachamim. There are Chazal. And at times they would disagree. But it seemed clear that they understood that this was...
Why?
Yeah, this was the cause.
Also,
Yeah.
it might be out of the scope, but can we review at some point or have a list, emails of the Torah's acquisition, the 40
Yes, it's in Pirkei Avos. I can show it to you after class. It's in the Siddur in Pirkei Avos. Okay. Rabbi Akiva number 4. This is from Art Scroll. Rabbi Akiva was the greatest sage of his generation. It is said that he was the shorish, the source of Torah Shebaal Peh. The line of transmission of the Torah from Sinai to future generations ran through him and his students. I don't know what he means. He was the source. He was not the source. The source is Moshe on Har Sinai, right? I would say he's the conduit. Okay, the line of transmission of the Torah from Sinai to future generations ran through him and his students. When his 24,000 students were decimated, it caused a major depression. How would the chain continue? Who would provide the life of Torah to future generations? How could they ever be replaced? How could a grieving people on the run from Roman persecution be consoled for the loss of so many great men so crucial to the spiritual survival of the nation? The urge to say it's all over must have been overwhelming. The less faithful and more pessimistic among them must have been ready to give up. Rabbi Akiva recovered his devastating loss to transmit the Torah through a new group of 5 students. It was on Lag BaOmer that Rabbi Akiva began teaching Torah to these new Talmidim. The seeds he planted that day, which ultimately produced the massive rejuvenation of Torah, are the reasons for celebrating on Lag BaOmer. On this day we commemorate the renewal. I would just say that in our generation, or the generation just before ours, when the Jews of Europe were decimated, along with all of the yeshivas and the amazing Torah learning that was going on in Europe, with the one exception being the Mir Yeshiva, the one yeshiva which escaped intact miraculously through Japan to Shanghai, and presently in Yerushalayim in Jerusalem and in New York and in Brooklyn. There was a similar feeling of how could Torah ever be rebuilt? And amazing that the amount of people studying in yeshivas now, I think, is more than ever was. More than pre-war Europe.
That means there's a greater percentage of Jewish people than now than then that are in yeshiva, since the Jewish population is relatively smaller.
I don't know.
No.
I don't know if the Jewish population is so much smaller now than it
It's
was.
about 14 million now. It's probably about the same then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe a little larger, but not
Yeah.
much larger. Maybe 16 million, but
If
not
I
much
have
larger.
the question, if his students didn't die, maybe Rabbi Akiva wouldn't have got punished by the Romans.
I don't know if maybe we can always say maybe, but I don't know if we I don't know what we attribute that torturous death Rabbi Akiva had.
Because maybe it ties into the fact that he lost his student.
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay.
So again, it was on Lag BaOmer Akiva began to transmit the Torah to the new group of 5 students. The seeds he planted that day, which ultimately produced a massive rejuvenation of Torah, are the reasons for celebrating on Lag BaOmer. We commemorate the renewal. We celebrate the determination. We cheer the cessation of the plague. We foresee the future bright with hope and determination. As the centuries pass, as the Romans of every period seek our destruction and annihilation, we look to Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai for inspiration. We note how they looked the enemy in the face and persevered, thus ensuring that our nation and our Torah are alive and flourishing this very day. In the wake of a tragedy that would have felled lesser people, Rabbi Akiva strengthened himself and set about ensuring that the chain remains unbroken. Yes?
I had always heard that his students were killed by the Romans, but according to these sources, it looks more like a plague from Hashem.
Yes. You know, and I shared, I've forgotten which class it was, I shared recently that I'm a bit older than some of you guys, younger than others, okay? But I, going to elementary school in the late 60s and early 70s, so I had some Rabbeim who were from Europe. And my 8th grade Rebbe in particular. And it was very sad because he was over here and we were over here, and almost never the twain shall meet. It was just, it was a different world. And the way the world looked right after, and this is 20 years, 20, 25 years after, those who had survived Europe, and he had this rabbi, Alav Shalom, had actually learned in the Mir Yeshiva in Shanghai, and he was trying to share with us, and we were a bunch of
kids,
a bunch of immature
13
American, 12, 13-year-olds, interested in Superman and these things, and we were horrific to him. We were horrific to him, and after my 2 years in Israel post high school, I called him, and I said, I don't know if you remember me, and I said my name, and he said, "Oh, I remember you," which made me a little bit nervous. But I explained to him that I just spent 2 years learning in Israel, and I now appreciated a certain degree of what he was and what he had gone through and what he represented and what he was trying to teach us. And I apologized on behalf of myself and my friends for the havoc that we wreaked. And he very kindly said that he really appreciated the call, and he said that years ago he forgave each and every one of us, understanding that we were just
Foolish children.
kids, and just kids coming, just being brought up in a world that was so apart from where he was. The Zohar. So let's go a little bit, because so far we've just mentioned we mentioned Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai.
Yeah.
Now the Gemara in Shabbos tells the story of Shimon ben Yochai, where he was being chased by the Romans, right? And he had spoken harshly about the Romans, and they wanted to kill him, and he went into a cave, and he survived miraculously in this cave for years and years, he and his son. And of course the Gemara in Shabbos is on Daf Lamed Gimel, is on the 33rd Daf of Shabbos. Right? Now, the Zohar in the Idra Zuta and Devarim says as follows: Oto Yom Bikesh Rav Shimon ben Yochai Lislekman Olam, the day that Shimon ben Yochai was going to take leave from this world. By Masada Devarav, and he was organizing his teachings. Niskansu Hachaverim Lebeito, his students, friends came into his house. And he said to them, Atasha Eit Ratzonhi. Now it is a time of Ratzon. It is a time of heavenly favor. Milan Kedoshot Shalog Hilita Arata Ratzoni Legalotan. Hidden teachings that have not revealed until now, I would like to, holy teachings, hidden teachings, I'd like to reveal it now. That entire day, there was a fire in the house. Right? No one could come there, could approach him. The light and the fire was surrounding him. Rabbi Shimon. After he passed away and they came to bury him, the fire flew into the air and danced before him. A voice was heard from the heavens saying, "Come and gather every year for the Hilula, for the anniversary of the death of Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai." Okay, so while this theme seems to be unrelated to Lag BaOmer, it is noteworthy that Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai was one of the 5 students Rabbi Akiva taught after the first 24,000 died. Thus, celebrating Shimon bar Yochai's contribution to the Torah also amounts to celebrating the continuation of Akiva's legacy after the devastating plague. So Shimon bar Yochai passed away on Lag BaOmer. Now, we rejoice when a child is born. We mourn when a person dies. This idea of a hilula, of a celebration upon the death, seems strange to us. But in fact, if we were to view this from a Torah perspective, what we do is quite strange. We're rejoicing when a child is born. Who knows which path this child will go on? Who knows? Will this child be righteous or otherwise? Who knows?
Hashem.
Correct. But we don't. Right? At the death of a person, there we see the good decisions, the choices that a person has made, and we understand that the time the person was allotted on this earth has passed, has been used well, and that is why by the anniversary of the death of a tzaddik, it is a hilula. In Israel, Lag BaOmer, in Miron. Miron is the city up north where Shimon bar Yochai is buried. You have probably upwards of more than 250,000 people who will visit Miron during the days before, on, and immediately after Lag BaOmer. From Yerushalayim, normally you want to take a bus from Yerushalayim, you need to get, what time is the bus going? Forget about it. You want to go to Miron, the bus fills up,
Go.
Next one comes. Another bus pulls up. It's just one after another after another. You pay, you get a ticket, and that way, whenever you finish there, you print a ticket and you take the bus on the way back. It's going all night. I went one year when I was living in Israel. I went to Miron, left about 2:30 in the morning, got there about 3:30, 4. I forgot what time it was. Right, and there's just a mass of people trying to get to the kever. You daven, say some tehillim, and you take the bus back. Right. So Lag BaOmer in Israel, one of the hardest things when I moved from Israel for my kids was dealing with Lag BaOmer. Right. Lag BaOmer here. Right. So we make a bonfire. We do our best. Thank you. Right. Right. But compare. In Israel, for months before, the kids were dragging doors, logs, branches. It is wild what goes on there. Fire hazards besides the point, but it is wild what goes on there. This is the Hilula of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who was one of the students of Rabbi Akiva, and his yurtzeit is on Lag BaOmer, and Lag BaOmer is the time that he started teaching those students. So therefore, the look forward towards the rebuilding and the rejuvenation is Lag BaOmer. Yes?
So is this fire, this Aish in his house, the source of why we do the bonfire?
Yes. Well, yeah, I mean, we say the Torah is like fire. Yes, that is definitely a connection.
So the reason it's a little bit more specific, he said he organized his teachings so that's, I mean, maybe not specifically the death, but now that it was able to be transmitted more.
Yeah, that is correct. So the Kaf HaChaim, source number 6, Rabbi Chaim Vital. Rabbi Chaim Vital was the preeminent student of the Arizal, of the great Kabbalist. Wrote that the reason for the rejoicing is for the students that Rabbi Akiva added afterwards who did not die like those first ones. I write this to teach. Rabbi Chaim Vital says there's a basis to the custom mentioned above to go to Miron and celebrate on Lag BaOmer, particularly because Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was one of the 5 great students of Rabbi Akiva, and therefore his time of happiness is Lag BaOmer. Similarly, source 7, in the Toldot HaArizal, Bimei Rav Yosef Karo, in the days of our master, Rav Yosef Karo, of course, who is the composer, the writer of the Shulchan Aruch, the Code of Jewish Law, Hiskimu, Shelo Yasu Yisrael Harbeim Michol B'Lag BaOmer Al Tzion Rosh Yochai. The Jews would not make a big celebration on Lag BaOmer at the grave Rosh Yochai. The near L'Maran Beit Dino Shu Zilzul, he thought that it would somewhat it was a cheapening. Sha'ochlim u'merakdim, that people would eat there and dance there. The nichtava v'lo nechtama. So that was how he had felt, and this decision of his was written, but it was not signed. Balayla chalam maran, but that night, Rabbi Yosef Karo, Maran, and the Mechaber had a dream. Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, a dream that included none other than Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. Va'amar lo, shetavon gave gdol bavur zu haskama, and he said that a tremendous plague, a tremendous mishap would come about because of that decision that they had reached. He was told, do not publish that. That it was his wish that the people should rejoice on his hilula, ulamacha karat haskama. And the next day, he tore up that haskama, that agreement that he had written to terminate this custom of people going to the grave of Shimon Yochai Miron on Lag BaOmer. Now, actually in Israel now, not now, but for many decades now, there are 2 days that people go there. There is, of course, Lag BaOmer, and there are those that go instead, or in addition, on Zayin Adar. Zayin Adar is both the birthday and the yahrzeit of Moshe Rabbeinu. And they say that Shimon Bar Yochai's neshama was a nitzutz, was a spark of the soul of Moshe Rabbeinu, and therefore there are those that go to his gravesite on Zayin Adar. Now we mentioned before the bonfires that we're having Saturday night, and that so there's a letter from the Bar Tanura, letter of Bar Tanura from Darchei Tzion. B'yom Yirchet B'Iyar, on the 18th day of Iyar, Yom Mitato Shel Shemei Yochai, which is the yahrzeit of Shemei Yochai, Ba'im Mikol HaSvivot, they come from all the surrounding areas. Umadlikin Aleha Avukot Gedolot, and they ignite these big torches. Milvad Mash Madlikin Aleha Ner Tamid. Right? Besides that there's always candles burning by the graveside of Shemei Yochai. Shabei Akarot Nifkedu. V'cholim Nitrapu. Beneder Ubenadava. Shinadvu Mamakom Hahu. Many barren women were remembered, became pregnant. Many sick people were cured because of these Nidarim Nidavot, these pledges that they made at that holy place on that holy day. So the bonfires represent, as you said, the fire that was there at the time of his death, and it's the fire of Torah that continues to burn and continues to illuminate. Lastly, once again from Aaron Cutler, and it's interesting. This is source number 3 was also from Aaron Cutler. Aaron Cutler was, if not the, certainly one of the builders of Torah in America. There were a number of Rosh yeshivas from Europe who came and started different yeshivas in America. You have Rav Ruderman Zatzal in there, Yisrael, and you had the Telz Yeshiva with Rav Eli Meir Bloch that was in Cleveland, and you had the Mir Yeshiva, right, in Brooklyn. You had many yeshivas, but Rav Aaron started the Lakewood Yeshiva. And the Lakewood Yeshiva was somewhat unique in that it was Torah, 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 Torah. And when you finish that, you have some more time to study? Torah. Right? There were no, joint college it was Torah, Torah,
no phys ed.
Torah. No phys ed. Yeah. And that's what that's what Beis Medrash Gavah, that's what Lakewood is. It is this engine of pure Torah. So if Aaron Cutler wrote, it is worth thinking about it from the other side. How great was the merit of the rabbis from the south, right? Those were the 5 new students who reestablished Torah. The Torah should have been passed on through the 24,000 students of Akiva, and instead was passed on through these 5 students. Those who toil in Torah in our generation, he writes, have a similar reward. Let's pause and think about this for a moment. So it should have been passed through 24,000. Instead, 5. What a merit. What a responsibility, and what a merit for those 5. And I once heard from Rav Yaakov Galinsky Zatzal, a very, very beautiful thought. He said that he once said to the Panovich Rav, the Rabbi of Panovich, he said to him that our generation is greater than the generation of Chazal, of the Gemara. Which seems to be ridiculous. How can you say such a thing? And he said, and I'll bring you a proof. The Gemara says that 1,000 start to learn Chumash, Of those 1,000 who start Chumash, 100, 1 out of 10, go on to Mishnah. Of those 100 who go to Mishnah, 1 out of 10 go on to Gemara, to Talmud. And of those 10 who go on to Talmud, one of them reaches Horah. One of them reaches the point of clarifying halachot. So look at our generation. Of the 100 who learn Chumash, of the 1,000 who learn Chumash, a lot more than 100 go on to learn Mishnah. Of those who learn Mishnah, a lot more than 10% go on to learn Gemara. And a lot more go on to Horah. So we have a better batting average. We're doing better than the generation of Chazal. We have a greater generation. So he explained, but why is it? So he compared it to a wedding, a New York wedding, when they're preparing for 700 people. And a New York wedding, that there was this flash snowstorm. Came out of nowhere. Wasn't predicted. The guests can't make it. The food is ready for 700 people, and 50, 60, 70, 80 people show up. So the waiters come out of the kitchen with these trays filled with this piping hot food saying, eat, eat, eat. Once it's here, right, it's got to go. Eat, eat, eat. So he explained, which could be a little bit also we see over here. He said in the generation of Chazal, 1,000 showed up. So the siyata d'shmaya, the help that was needed, the heavenly help to succeed, was divided up amongst 1,000. So therefore, 1 out of 10, 100 went to Mishnah. And then that gets divided up again. He said, in our generation, out of the 1,000, how many show up to learn Chumash? We're starting off with 100 who are coming instead of the 1,000. So therefore, the waiters come out with the trays filled with siyata d'shmaya, filled with heavenly assistance, and they say, eat, 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 eat. And that's why he said our success rate is higher. Now you wonder that there was 24,000 Talmidim, and they all died. The siyata d'shmaya that was available for these 5 was amazing. So those who toil in Torah in our generation have a similar reward. Without them, the world will be desolate. And through these few individuals, remnants of the Holocaust, whom God calls Amlei Torah, those who work in Torah, Ha'oskin b'Torah, the Torah, Ein HaTorah Mishtakachas Me Yisrael. The Torah is not forgotten from the Jewish people. So we too, again, and this is Rav Aaron writing this as he's trying to rebuild Torah in America after the Holocaust. That is the mission that we have. So Lag BaOmer is a time of rejoicing. It's rejoicing about the rebuilding, about the rejuvenation. It's the 5 students. It's the day that he started teaching these new students. It's the day that Rosh Yochai, at the end of his illustrious life and career, that he passed away. And we're celebrating his achievements, all of their achievements. We're celebrating the dedication to keep on going. And we're celebrating the importance of each and every individual. I think that's an important takeaway for us. The importance of each and every individual and all that we can accomplish and the effect that that can have.
Wow. So is it an auspicious time then to do the ceremonial part of your bar or bat mitzvah? Is it an especially auspicious time to read from Torah, or?
No. Look, bar bat mitzvah happens when you become 12 for a girl, 13 for a boy, right? So it's not something that we could,
But I meant, should someone happen to have that occur around this time?
That's nice. Yeah. Right, Dove, you want to? Thanks.
Thank you, Rabbi. Very
Thank
nice.
you.
Yasher Koach, everybody.